This system launched 1st January 2004, and it currently generates about 1 billion euros per year.
1 billion euros per year?
Yeah.
The Austrian truck tolling system?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Multi-Lane Free Flow series on Metro Mobility Stories. I've been talking about multi-lane free flow in various countries in this series, and today I have the privilege of having a global expert on multi-lane free flow, Mr. Norbert Schindler, with us. So Norbert, share about your journey, where you were born and how did you come into MLFF, which all projects you were involved with.
I grew up in the United States.
United States, but you're Austrian, right?
I'm Austrian. My parents were Austrian. They emigrated from Vienna.
Emigrated, okay.
They met in Vienna. My mother's from the mountains of Tyrol. Any of your listeners who have seen any of my videos will see me wandering the mountains of Tyrol, talking about tolling. My parents met in Vienna. They had 2 children, and then we moved to USA, where I was born. And I grew up in a household that was fascinated by science and technology. I went on to study at Carnegie Mellon University, which is quite known for computer science.
So your father was also into science?
Yes, he was. He was a physicist.
Physicist?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was actually involved in the first commercial launch of a satellite.
Really?
Correct, for communications.
Satellite, so that brought your link with the GNSS story.
Yeah, it only occurred to me after he passed away that we had this connection.
That's lovely.
Yeah. Then I decided to move to Austria, back to the roots, so to speak. I still had a grandmother living in the mountains of Tyrol, and I started working there, but after a short period of time I understood that it would be a good idea to get a master's degree in computer science and artificial intelligence.
Okay.
So I actually started working in the field of artificial intelligence back in the 80s.
You started working on artificial intelligence back in the 80s?
Yes, when it wasn't such a big thing like it is today.
Yeah.
But it was clear that that had potential for the future.
So you've actually seen artificial intelligence as a toddler to a young adult?
Toddler is maybe exaggerated, but I remember when my dad came home with the first pocket computer, and we all looked at it with fascination how he could type in complicated
artificial intelligence as a toddler, not you as a toddler.
Okay. It's a small boy when technology started to boom, and then the first PCs came out and so on. After a period of time in software engineering, I decided to move into telecommunications. And I was working for a few companies, and then I was working for a large Swedish company.
And your master's was from where, if I missed that?
My master's was from the Technische Universität Wien, which translates to the Technology University of Vienna.
Okay, wow.
Which is where my father got his PhD in physics, by the way.
So you went back to the same university where your father studied from?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. While I was working in the telecommunications sector, there was a crisis of technology companies, and many internet companies went broke. It was the internet crash, and also telecommunication companies were suffering. And the company I worked for almost had to close completely. So I was one of 70% of the people working there that was listed to leave. And at the same time, an Italian company, Autostrade per l'Italia, won a contract.
So like they say in the Chinese language, the word danger and opportunity is the same. So you found the opportunity in the danger of losing your job.
It was inevitable that if your company that you're working for is closing, you look for other opportunities. And it just so happened that across the street basically was a company called Kapsch, which won the contract as a subcontractor to Autostrade at the end of 2002.
Yeah.
And then early 2003, I went to start working for Kapsch.
Yeah, wow.
Kapsch was a famous family company known for televisions and telephones and various equipment. And as the monopolies were being broken up, the state-run companies were broken up and privatized. There was much more competition, and Kapsch decided it had to move in new directions. So it got this Ökopunkte project, which regulated the amount of truck traffic that was allowed to transit through Austria, which in those days was not a member of the European Union. And then it was decided that all trucks should pay a distance-based fee. So on all the highways, of which there are about 2,000, it was decided to build this technology using microwave transponders, So for each toll section, you would have a gantry.
So there are 2,000 kilometers of highways in Austria?
2,000 kilometers of
Wow.
national highways, yes.
Wow, that's a lot.
For a relatively small country
Yeah.
of about 9 million.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
So, and this system launched 1st January 2004, and it currently generates about 1 billion euros per year.
1 billion euros per year?
Yeah.
The Austrian truck tolling system?
Yeah. At the same time...
So you were there at just the first launch of the MLFF. I think that was one of the first global MLFF
It was
projects.
at the time the largest. It was the first nationwide tolling system of that time.
Did the German truck tolling system happen before that?
It was being built in parallel.
Wow.
And the Germans decided they're not going to build these microwave gantries on every single toll point because they didn't have 2,000 kilometers but 12,000 kilometers of highways, which would have meant an awful lot of gantries, hundreds. So they decided, nope, we're not going to build that. We're not going to invest in infrastructure. We're going to invest in onboard technology.
Okay.
So in 2005, finally, with some delays, the German toll system came out for trucks. And in the early days, it generated about 5 billion euros per year of toll revenue. Now it's about 10 billion.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the German truck tolling system generates about 10 billion of revenue for the state of Germany. Wow.
Right, but it's not just on the motorways, because with satellite technology, one could easily expand to all the major roads. So they expanded from 12,000 kilometers to 50,000 kilometers in a matter of months.
In a matter of months.
Because it's just, you know, putting points on a map.
Just a map,
On a digital map.
Awesome.
Working with Kapsch at the time, I got to know the technology, I got to know the approach. Kapsch was a leader at the time because it was, as I said, the first nationwide tolling system, and let's not forget there was subcontracted to Austria, which had a lot of experience in doing this sort of thing. In Italy, most of all. I was there, let's say, about 2 years, and then somewhere in the middle I realized that the future is probably going to be with less infrastructure. And that's when I decided to join the Siemens team in Vienna. They had the technology competence there.
Wow.
And I was mostly involved in sales and bid management there.
Okay.
And I became very active in many different locations in the world. Towards the end of my time at Siemens, I was very much focused in Russia because they were, at the time, were planning to launch a system of about 50,000 kilometers for truck tolls, which would have been at the time the largest in the world. Now Germany has the largest system as they expanded. Because Siemens did not win as many contracts as was hoped, they had to basically cut back on their operations in tolling. And that was the time I decided to leave the company and start my own company called GNSS Consulting. So at the time...
That was in year?
That was 2017.
2017 you started GNS Consulting. Wow.
Right. So I was doing tolling, let's say, for about 22 years now, of which 20 are mostly on satellite.
Wow.
Based solutions.
22 years in tolling and 20 mostly on satellite. Wow.
Yeah.
And all free flow.
Exactly. So today there's two approaches to free flow tolling. One is using microwave or tag and beacon. So there can be a microwave device, a transponder and a tag in the vehicle, or there can be an RFID tag in the vehicle and a transponder above. That's an infrastructure-based multi-lane free flow approach for detecting when the vehicles are traveling on the tolled roads. And then with a satellite-based approach, you don't need to build the infrastructure to detect the travel on the roads because it's all on board with the GNSS units. However, both of these systems have in common that you need enforcement.
Yes.
Right? So because
the enforcement and the back office is completely the same, whether it is GNSS or MLFF with the...
Right. So if you don't have any barriers, you have to be able to check the vehicles if they are fully equipped, as they should be, if they're fully registered, and that they're paying correctly. And since it's a free-flow environment, you can, on the one hand, have fixed enforcement gantries with cameras and other readers and equipment to determine if they have properly
So from 2017 onwards, as in GNSS Consult, how many multi-lane free flow projects? I mean, I categorize GNSS also a part of a larger umbrella of multi-lane free flow, because even in GNSS, there is multi-lane and there is free flow.
We need to have enforcement in both cases, right?
Yes.
So in Austria, where we have a infrastructure-based solution, still today, we're still one of the very few countries in the world that, or in Europe, let's say, that have decided to stick with the microwave-based approach rather than to expand the network using satellite solutions. In Austria, it has been proven to be highly cost-effective because the operation costs are only about 5% of the total revenue, which is a remarkable figure, right? So this is a standard which any technology will have a hard time to beat. At the same time, in Austria, we have not only the motorways, but trucks are traveling on other roads, the so-called Bundesstraßen, which means if the trucks decide to go off the motorway network and go on the other secondary road network, they don't have to pay. So there's all kinds of things you can do. You can put up signs and say the trucks are not allowed to travel and so on. But the phenomenon of toll evasion exists, which is why countries like Czech Republic had the same approach as Austria. They put it just on the motorways, but there was so much traffic diversion along parallel roads or different routes, they decided we're going to just convert to satellite so that we can toll all the roads.
So Norbert, share with me, after you started your MLFF journey, I would still classify GNSS as a part of
course.
MLFF. So which all countries were you involved with?
Oh, it's all on my website, so there's at least a dozen.
Just name a few.
Since I have my own company, I've been active in Bulgaria,
Bulgaria,
which has a satellite-based system. I was active in a project for France,
France,
the Netherlands.
Netherlands.
I was quite active in India, although not yet by contract. Maybe that will come. As you know, India was looking very deeply at the GNSS, and I was talking with IHMC on this topic for a while. And now they're more focused on multi-lane free flow without GNSS, so it's actually not a bad strategy to start with the front-end tolling technology of FastTag in the beginning, and then deal with the whole aspect of enforcement, which is very critical for any kind of multi-lane free flow. So that will be an interesting journey, and hopefully that will migrate to GNSS.
And before that, you were involved with Austria and with Siemens in which countries?
So when I joined CAPS, of course, that was for the Austrian project at the time, which was the largest multi-lane free flow project in the world. It was not the first. The first systems,
one of the first, yeah.
Well, in the late 90s, there were already a few multi-lane free flow projects. So the first one, I think, was.
But the first nationwide.
The first nationwide.
Yeah.
But there was a standard that was already established in Canada, for example, the 407 ETR.
Yeah, but this was the first nationwide project. Yeah.
That was the first nationwide multi-lane free flow project focused on trucks, of which we now have 11 such systems in Europe in operation.
Wow.
Yeah.
So which all countries were you involved with for CAPS and for Siemens before your own company?
So for CAPS, it was initially about the Austrian project. We were looking at the time to support the German project in terms of enforcement.
Okay.
They were also looking at pilot projects in the UK, where I was active.
Okay, the London congestion charging project.
No, that was something else. It was a small pilot project at the time. Then I was working with them trying to find a project in the United States. And I realized after about a year and a half that most likely the future will be oriented towards less infrastructure on the road. So satellite-based tolling I consider to be very promising, which is when I decided to move.
With Siemens, you were involved with which all countries in terms of actual implementation?
I was in sales.
Okay.
So
no, I mean where the actual sales happened.
I was active in Poland, setting up a consortium there, which again lost the cups because it was again written in such a way that using microwave technology had a advantage. Slovakia was the most important project during my tenure that was awarded to Siemens.
Okay, so you've had really, out of all the people I've spoken to on MLFF, probably the widest, experience on MLFF, And I would like to know from you, what was the biggest challenge you faced in all of these projects? And in terms of violations, what was the percentage of revenue loss that happened from the lowest level to the highest level in percentage?
I can only speak to the European truck tolling projects, the nationwide projects that we mentioned, of which there are 11.
You need not mention the project if there's a privacy issue. I mean, you can just
No. So we
mention to me the percentages that were varying.
We have 11 nationwide truck tolling systems
Yeah,
operating in Europe. The first started with Austria 2004.
yeah.
To my knowledge, all of these systems have a toll leakage of less than 1%.
Wow.
So
All of these systems have a toll leakage less than 1%.
to my knowledge.
And when they started, what was it?
No, that was a requirement. You had
From the day one, you had less than 1%?
yes.
That's
I
really
mean,
amazing.
maybe during the first weeks there were some issues. Maybe not all vehicles were equipped, and maybe we had more enforcement. I was not involved in the operations. But I can say that today, from all the information I've gathered on all these projects from the authorities, the toll leakage does not exceed 1%.
So with this, we come to the end of part one, where Norbert shared with us about his global experience and his learnings from different projects.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Norbert.
thank you.